All right. Welcome in to On the Clock NFL Draft Show, episode number 12. NFL Draft Mock Draft, picks 1 through 10 with special guest Shane Hallam. Right now, we are 27 days, 23 hours, 25 minutes, and 1 second until the 2023 NFL Draft. It is crunch time, and we've had some discussion off air before we got on air about how we're spending crunch time, and a lot of us are diving into prospects, and KT's down here. Like, KT's like next year already. KT's in the future, man. KT is living in the we're talking pro days. Like, we have so much going on. My head is spinning. I'm in one door, out the other door, and I'm just, you know what? Let's ride the wave, baby. And with me to ride the wave this evening, my co-host. I'm going to start with the mayor of college football, Mr. Nino Brown at Nino Brown _T2T. Nino, what's cooking?
What's going on? I'm happy to be here tonight with you fine gentlemen, talking first 10 picks in the draft. You know, Shane threw a stat at me off camera and just blew my mind. I don't know how he does it, but God bless him. I commend him for his work ethic. He is him.
Yeah. Well, that's why I like Shane, man, in a industry, like, at least like I'm going to keep it personal, where I spend a lot of my time following people and interacting with people is in social media. It's in Twitter, and there's a lot of names and a lot of people and a lot of content, and it's like flooded. But Shane sticks out because this dude, he knows what he does. Like, he knows how to do it. And he's also like, he's got the skins on the wall. All right. But before I introduce Shane, I want to also introduce my guy, KT. KT is the governor of college football. Leverett _KT on the Twitter. KT, what's cooking?
What's happening, man? I'm excited. I know draft season is in the air. I'm excited for this upcoming season of college football.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of these players are guests who now I'm going to introduce them. Shane Hallam at Shane P. Hallam on the Twitter. He's been watching these kids since they were seniors in high school. So I'm sure this is a revolving door for him. But Shane, you are very busy. We are so grateful to have you. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. I'm glad we could link up. I know it's a busy time. This like last month is a slog getting everything in and done, but it's nice being here. I'm excited for this mock, man. It's always fun.
Yeah. And you run draftcountdown.com with our guy Brian Bosarge, Deep Fried Draft. We've dubbed him the ambassador of Mobile, Alabama. And I know you guys have a YouTube channel. And I was checking you guys out the other day. You guys did your own mock draft, a little similar to this, full first round. So why don't you tell the listener, if they don't know who you are, where they can find your content and what you've been working on recently?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can go to draftcountdown.com. My series right now has been my player comps. So I've been comping every player that was invited to the combine to a prospect from my past that I've scouted. So a little different, not the and everyone comps people to NFL superstars. Mine is this guy's very similar to this prospect, that I scouted in 2004, 2005, 2010, 2020, whatever. So I go back on my notes, see what matches up, and if the size matches up. So I've been doing that. And then starting next week will be my scouting reports, position by position, every player that I've watched that's eligible for this draft. I'll have at least a couple sentences about. So when your team signs that undrafted free agent, you can find it there. We got the podcast, Draft Countdown podcast. You can get that wherever you get your podcasts. And then for the fantasy folks, the Debbie Marketplace podcast.
Oh, yeah. I know Nino's been working on some player comps as well. I loved his Christian Gonzalez for Nnamdi Asomugha. I love some of his. Yeah. So I hate to create like more work for you gentlemen, but I would love to see you both link up. Maybe we'll do this on Toilets to Titles on a Tuesday night. Bring you guys on and we can talk some player comps because I know you both have them in there. But KT, over at CFB Nation, right? This show is brought to you by Real Ones Production. Our brother brand is CFB Nation. You guys, you and Nino changed up the schedule a little bit. So before we get this mock on, why don't you let everybody know what's going on at CFB Nation, what kind of shows, when they're going to see Nino, when they're going to see you, and kind of what else is going on over there.
Alrighty, so yeah, we got a lot going on. Nino will be opening up the week Mondays and Tuesdays. He's got a new show called CFB Prime. It's must see, and he's got a segment called Blow the Whistle. So everybody that's out there making these takes, you gotta be careful because Nino may blow the whistle. Hell, Nino may blow the whistle on me.
Dude, I'm in the radar. 100, dude, he blows the whistle on me in our DMs like every 2 or 3 days. So it's fair.
Oh yeah, man. So yeah, you're gonna get that work on the show, and then on Wednesdays is probably the busiest day for us because I'll be opening up Wednesday with College Football Morning. CFB Morning is what I'm calling it. And then Boomer comes on at 11 a.m., 10 a.m. his time. Of course, he's got the Sooner Shakedown. That show is doing phenomenal, by the way. And then also we got D Now, who's closing out our Wednesdays with Hawk Ness. And that second episode, he's already doing numbers. And shout out to D Now, man. D Now was just named the Director of Media Relations for CFB Nation. Shout out to him. He's been doing his thug dizzle. And then Thursdays, me and Nino got something in the work for that. Moon is coming with the CFF show that he's got. So you guys want to see us every day. And then Friday, I'm doing another episode of Good Morning College Football.
I see Moon's in here right now. I know Moon just recorded an episode with, I think, is it Bordeaux YouTube on there, and they discussed, I think it was like 20 minutes or so. So you want to go check that out, and that's on Moon's own personal YouTube channel. I don't have his Twitter handle. It's Moon Vibes TV. That's what it is. So go check it out. And if you're somebody out there and you're hungry, you want to create some content like we are, whether it's CFB Nation, Toilets and Titles, like we are nonstop. And we've been doing this for a little bit now, and we will be here. Like you link up with us, we'll help guide you, we'll help push you in the right direction. As long as you're hungry, there's a place for you. So reach out. I'm on the Twitter at Coach Chefs. But anyway, enough of all that. It's time to mock. And we are starting with the first selection, the Carolina Panthers. Oh, there's both sides. No Vandy losing that. There he is. On the spot. No Vandy losing the QBs, please. All right. Carolina Panthers. Shane, who you take with the first overall selection?
Well, we know why Carolina moved up to 1, and it was to get a franchise quarterback. I think that's obvious. I don't necessarily think they moved up with a player in mind. This is who we're taking. I think they looked at the class as a whole, said this is a good class. We can find the franchise quarterback here. Let's do our due diligence and see who we really want. They've done the circuit out there at the pro days and watching all 4 of these quarterbacks in person. To me, I think it's fairly obvious who they're going to take and who they should take. I think it's going to match up. I think Frank Reich and David Tepper are going to want the kind of pro-ready, pass-heavy, quarterback that can do it all. So I'm going to take C.J. Stroud, the quarterback out of The Ohio State University. Cornelius Coleridge Bernard Stroud III. So for me, he's my QB1. He's my number 2 overall player in this class. I think C.J. Stroud is a phenomenal passer. I think his ball placement downfield is exceptional. We saw the pocket presence against Georgia that he's been developing and getting better. I think you put him with Frank Reich, who's made some of these quarterbacks into much better players than they are. I think it's a slam dunk. I'll take a Stroud at 101.
Cornelius Moon enjoys that name. Now, is there any concern about landing spot? Now, you're Ohio State guy. CJ Stroud's your boy. All right, are you concerned at all about Carolina as a landing spot for him?
I am not. I think it's a pretty good spot. I know, from a fantasy perspective, you look at, who are the receivers and who's the running backs, but they have a good offensive line. They've invested in the offensive line. We're seeing them invest in the tight end position a little bit, bring in Hayden Hurst. I think that's a good move. They're probably going to draft a receiver in the second round. They have a second round pick to do that.
They brought in Chark, right?
Right, and they brought in DJ Chark, which I think was a good move. You get a deep threat pretty cheap. They still have Terrace Marshall there. I think it's fine. Look, there's a reason these teams are picking in the top 10. They're not very good teams. There's a lot that needs to happen, but you get the quarterback and the rest will come.
All right, I like it. And is he going to have to start day 1?
Yes. Yeah, I think he is. I think he should. I think he can. That's the difference between, I think, CJ Stroud and some of the other quarterbacks in this class. He could start day 1 and be a top 15 quarterback in the NFL.
All right, Nino, you were on the clock with the second selection for the Houston Texans. Where are we going? Oop, I think we lost them. So now, do we think that the Houston Texans are going to go anywhere other than quarterback?
I don't think it's 100% quarterback. I think it's in the 90s. I think it's very likely, but I would not. They have having the 12th pick, I think, gives them a little bit of flexibility. Ultimately, if they do think that there's an elite defensive player in this class, if they like the fourth best, fifth best quarterback in the class, then pick the guys you like. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but you don't pick a 2 very often. I think you got to take the quarterback when you can.
KT, I'm going to flip your pick from the Colts to the Texans. And then when Nino comes back, I'm going to let him pick for the Colts. So hopefully I'm not putting you on the spot too much. But where would you go for the Houston Texans with the second selection?
I think the Houston Texans are going Bryce Young.
All right, so they're going quarterback now. Do you think, I know Shane said the Carolina Panthers going CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud's going to start day one. Do you think the Houston Texans do they feel under the gun to start a quarterback to try to win day one? Or do you think they're going to take some time with him and try to develop the team around him before they give him the full keys to the vehicle?
I think that's a phenomenal question. I don't think they're in a position to not start him day one. I think he will be a day one starter as well. Now, a team like the Colts, the team I was picking for originally, I think they're in a position where whoever they draft doesn't necessarily have to start. They still have Foles. They have Gardner Minshew. So are those guys you want leading your franchise? Absolutely not. But are they formidable? Absolutely. But I think in Houston's position, if you draft Bryce Young, he should be your guy day one.
And they locked up Laramie Tunsil. So they locked up somebody who's going to help protect him. And then what's their wide receiver core looking right now? They got Nico Collins. I know they traded Brandon Cooks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they pick again at 12. So maybe they'll go ahead and they'll try to lock somebody up who can either help them I think they got Dameon Pierce. I think they're comfortable. I don't think they're going to go running back. But
they're comfortable at that.
I've seen people mock him, Bijan there, which would be, he's a Texas guy and be interesting to see there. But let's see what they do if they go Bryce Young. Be interesting to see in the next episode where they go at 12 to try to help their quarterback out. But now, Shane, you're on the clock. Third selection, Arizona Cardinals.
This is where the draft's going to get interesting. I'm interested to see if we get some movement here at 3 before the draft happens. I think it's either going to be in the next couple weeks or not at all. If Arizona moves out of this pick, I think the expectation of Stroud and Young going 1 or 2 is out there. Does a team like Anthony Richardson or Will Levis enough to move up to 3 to get the quarterback? I think that's the question. I'm not sure it's going to happen. I think neither of those quarterbacks are sell the house, to move up and grab. And I don't necessarily know what teams would make that move. So if the Cardinals are picking at 3, this is a team that needs a lot of help. It's a team that is devoid of talent and has lost a lot of talent. But I think you'd go with the defensive side of the ball with this pick. You're bringing in a new head coach who was a defensive coordinator for a Super Bowl team. You're changing the system, which is always going to bring in new players that you need to fit the system, because when you're trying to convert an older defense that was in that 3-4 mold into a wide 9-4-3, there's a lot of changes that have to happen. And I think that also makes this pick interesting, because not every defensive player is going to fit that system for Jonathan Gannon. So, look, my number 1 player in this class has been since August, probably last January, 2022, is Will Anderson, the edge out of Alabama. I'm not picking him here. I think Arizona, the best fit for their defense is Tyree Wilson, the edge rusher out of Texas Tech. I'm going to select him here at 3. Is that going to happen? Is that going to be in my final mock? I don't know if I can do it, but it is going to be in my mock draft next
You're
week,
giving us this is final mock material right here.
Look, like it is. Well, we just have to see how bold I want to be in the final one. But I have a 7-rounder coming out next week, and this will be the pick at 3 because I think he is a better fit, and the NFL seems to like him much more than I do.
Is it traits with Tyree Wilson? Is it, I mean, he has 17 career sacks in 23, 30, 35 games. Does that concern you at all?
Yes. I'm not the biggest Tyree Wilson fan. I think there's a lot of bustability potential with the injury this year. I think the production would have happened. It's the size, really. You're getting a player at 6'6", 270 pounds that can play that traditional hand-down 4-3 defensive end that can kick inside on third down, the versatile player. I think Will Anderson, my comp for him was Von Miller. I think he's that kind of player, but Von Miller's a very specific type of stand up, rush the passer from a weak side backer, 3-4 outside linebacker position. The Eagles defense didn't really have that. So I think, Wilson's versatility allows him to fit this defense more, and Arizona might lead to that. I think it'd be a major mistake. I think we look back and say, whoops, you messed this one up, but we're picking what they will do, not what they should do.
I like that type of analysis. I like the thought process, not necessarily just what you see in the player. It's interesting to kind of try to read the tea leaves and predict what the NFL is going to do based upon what they've done in the past. And how, KT, you think there's any chance? Is this absurd to think there's a chance the Arizona Cardinals trade Kyler Murray and draft a quarterback?
If at 3, and if both Bryce Young,
and
CJ Stroud are off the board,
yes. I mean, I'm not hesitating though, so that's interesting.
Yeah. I'm not 100% sure because I mean, you look at whenever you see new leadership and new teams, Jonathan Gannon, he didn't draft Kyler Murray. He's not tied.
Right.
He's not tied to Kyler Murray. So would it be completely far-fetched to do that? No. They're clearly shopping around D-Hop. So I don't know. That's a tough question.
Right? Because it seems like when his own teammate is throwing him under the bus, it's weird. It just don't smell right. I
mean, there's definitely been concerns about, how much he's in the playbook, how much is he watching film. He got a lot going on outside of football as well. So I don't know. I don't think that's completely far-fetched. I think if they do move on from him, I'm not sure that they're moving on from him to draft another quarterback in this draft.
All right. So I'm going to take the 4th selection. We got Cliff Ritter in here. He's talking about Tyree Wilson. He said, 23-year-old senior with foot problems, hard pass. So I think Shane kind of feels that way. But again, he's just trying to decipher what the NFL, sometimes the NFL goes goo gaga over size, strength, speed, and upside. So the Indianapolis Colts, this one's tough. I'm going to take this selection, like I said, in honor of my guy, Nino. I would take Will Levis, right? But with Will Anderson there, arguably the best player in the draft, it's hard not to go that route, right? It's hard not to stay at 4, take him, because how do you if you want to keep your job, you can't afford to miss in the top 5. And this is I feel like it's a home run. And I haven't seen Will Anderson make it to the Colts much. And I'm going to go Will Anderson, edge out of the University of Alabama. So, Shane, you are on the clock now with the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, I think it's interesting for the Colts to go that way.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Man, I think Jim Irsay is quarterback or bust. I think he is. He's been waiting for this rookie quarterback since they had Phillip Rivers.
I think it's the same thing with Shane Steichen as well. I think he wants a quarterback too.
But
which quarterback would you take?
For Shane Steichen, that's actually for me the best fit for Anthony Richardson. You seen what he did with Jay Herbo in 2020.
I'll audible. We can group make this.
No. Look, we can take Anderson.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean
that's probably.
I wasn't originally picking for the Colts. Mm-hmm. If Shane, which quarterback do you think that the Colts would go with?
No, I'm with KT. I think we know how much Chris Ballard hits that athleticism. I mean, last year, I think the lowest RAS score that the Colts drafted was like a 985, a 98.5 percentile athlete. Every single pick.
Crazy.
Every single
That's
pick.
Crazy.
And Anthony Richardson is a 10. He's 100%, right? He's the best quarterback, athlete ever. So they're probably not going to do that again this year, but it's going to be pretty close. I mean, they're going to take good athletes. One discussion that I've had is how many mocks have the Colts taken a quarterback? I mean, it's got to be, if you have 10,000 mocks, it's got to be like 9,985, right? There's a whole 15 that there aren't. So, which there should be more, So I think your pick is fair because I think there's more than 0.01% chance that the Colts take a defender.
I just don't. If Will Anderson makes it out of the top three, I just don't see. And then you know what? Also, if the Colts do want a quarterback, I think this is also a situation like where a team at 7. Or a team like somebody else, or even if the Lions get antsy and they want to secure a guy, I think somebody would have to come up in the top 5 and take Will Anderson. I do. But Shane, you're on the clock for the 5th selection for the Seattle Seahawks.
I think Seattle's interesting. They're a team that in the free agency has invested a lot into the defensive line and defensive tackle position. I think going in, a lot of us felt like, okay, this is a position to take a defensive lineman, take a D tackle, whatever. I think it's still on the board, but they also have some needs in the secondary. I think every level of that defense could be improved ultimately. I think Tyree Wilson and Will Anderson are probably going to be both pretty high on their board. I think both of those guys could fit what they would do. Ultimately, here at the 105, I am going to go with Jalen Carter, the defensive tackle out of Georgia. I'm hesitant. I am really hesitant about his draft stock. The scuttlebutt out there has not been good for the teams in the top 10, really considering him. And it wouldn't surprise me if he falls out of the top 10 completely with the legal issues and some of the questions. We know how good Jalen Carter is. The Seahawks did bring in Draymond Jones. That they're putting a lot of money in investment, but I think Jalen Carter can play that nose tackle position in the middle of that defense and give you some penetrating ability up the middle. I think it's just a good fit if those two edge guys are off the board.
All right, so I have
him too.
So I'm trying to think who my comp was for him off the top. I'll look it up. But I definitely went through like a number of different defensive tackle prospects. It's hard when you have a guy like this elite as a talent to figure it out. So I went Ndamukong Suh out of Nebraska was who I settled on. I think that dominance, he doesn't have the numbers that Sue had, but the testing, very similar athletes, top tier athletes at that position. And I think that penetrating ability is what both brought to the table. So my notes were probably a little better with Sue. Carter was a tough one for me to find a comp for because I think he is a little bit unique.
All right. I talked to D now, resident Detroit Lions fan, and I told him I'm going to be picking for the Lions. And I told him, I might shock some people with my selection. I also told Nino I'm going to shock some people with my selection. And it was going to be Jalen Carter, or it was going to be this other player. And this other player, I feel, is a Dan Campbell special. Like, this is a Dan Campbell special. And I see Seahawks Our Life 12 is in here. Nice to see you. We got Justin Stevens in here as well. Nice to see you, my guy. And if you're watching the show and you aren't subscribed to the YouTube channel, you want to throw us a sub, that'd be greatly appreciated. We're creeping in on 1,000. But I knew this player was a great fit for the Detroit Lions when I heard my guy Dane Brugler refer to him as the Cocaine Bear. And that is Lucas Van Ness. All right. I am taking Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa. He can play inside. He can play outside. You look at the depth chart for the Detroit Lions. They got Aiden Hutchinson. And they got Levi on Wuzurike, who they took in the second round in 2021. They got John Kaminsky, Josh Pascal, Charles Harris. I'm telling you, you put Van Ness on this defensive line with Hutchinson. You let him move around a little bit. I think it's a match made in heaven. It's a lot of upside. Okay. I think he didn't start a game last year, right? But he still had the third most quarterback pressures in all the Big Ten. So the guy can get to the quarterback, relentless motor. He's going to need some coaching. He's going to need some development. But when you have a guy like Aiden Hutchinson on the defensive line, who's probably going to demand that double team, he doesn't have to come out and be the alpha. So he can play like an alpha without being dubbed the alpha. And again, I just think Dan Campbell would have a lot of fun with this selection. So I'm going to put this in. You guys got any did I surprise anybody? Does anybody think this is too early?
I'm not surprised with the pick at all. I could definitely see Campbell doing something like that. Shane, what do you have him? If you know this off the top of your head, what do you have him rank as far as your pass rushers?
Yeah, I'm a little bit lower. I have him 6th on my edge rushers now. I think he's going to go. I don't think he's going to be the 6th edge rusher off the board. I think he'll be, maybe 4th, 3rd to 4th, like he is here. I mean, he's the 3rd off the board in this draft, so I think it's very possible. I have some worries. He's going to fit a lot of defenses, kind of like Tyree Wilson. When you have that size and you have that ability to move around, I think teams will like you more. I think a lot of teams are going to like Lucas Van Ness. I think the Lions absolutely could. I think it's a realistic pick. I do have some fear because there's definitely games where he was just a sub package guy, right? He never started. That's always a thing. And it doesn't matter that much. But there are a lot of games where he played starter snaps. Then there were some games where he didn't. I mean, they just didn't put him out on the field enough. And when he was out there, he wasn't effective. It seemed like they really schemed him up to where games he could be successful against offensive linemen he could be successful against, which is great. That's a sign of a good defense and a good coach and good defensive coach. In the NFL, if you're getting picked in the top 10, you better be playing every snap, right? So I have some hesitation on him. It's more unknown than like, oh, this is bad, and that's a question. But I think this is possible. I mean, I think he's going to be a top 15 pick for sure. So this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I don't think Campbell's going to be he doesn't seem like the type of guy who's going to be afraid of taking somebody that others might deem a reach. Kind of how Gruden was when he first started with the Raiders. He made some selections that kind of blew people's mind, but it ended up kind of biting him in the behind. But I could see Campbell, if he likes a guy, just taking him where he is, and not running from that. But Shane, you're on the clock. Pick number 7 for the Las Vegas Raiders.
I think the Raiders are another tough team. Do they take the kind of quarterback in waiting in Will Levis or Hendon Hooker at 7? I tend to think not. If you're going to bring in Jimmy Garoppolo, I think you think that you can compete now and probably want to bring in some pieces to compete now for Vegas. So to me, that really comes down to the offensive line or addressing the defense. They really need that kind of rock solid, corner one in this class. I think depending on the team that takes the first corner will depend on what the corner is. I think if a team like Detroit at 6 takes the first corner, I think Devin Witherspoon out of Illinois is a very real possibility. But I think if it is the Raiders at 7, I think it will be Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback out of Oregon. That's who I'm going to pick here. Because I think he has that kind of corner one ability, to be locked down. He's not going to make the big interception. He's not going to run it back for a touchdown. You have to be okay with that. Some teams aren't. But I think Vegas needs that in the division. They need a corner one. They have the slot corner, Nate Hobbs, who's very good. I think Gonzalez would be a good fit.
All right, so there goes the first corner.
Pick. He tested well. His rad score is astronomical. Yeah, I think Vegas will be very happy with that pick, and they should have had an opportunity to see him quite a ton as well.
Hey, KT, you are going to select for the Atlanta Falcons here with the 8th pick, and we only have 2 quarterbacks off the board. I'm interested to see where you go with this selection.
Yeah, at this point, I didn't expect both Will Levis and Anthony Richardson to be here. This is a tough pick. This is a very tough pick. Because you're looking at their team needs. Edge pops up there. corner pops up there. I don't think at this point they're still expecting somebody like Will Levis to be there. So I'm going to select Will Levis for the Atlanta Falcons.
All right, there it is. Will Levis is the third quarterback off the board. And let's see if Moon's still here. He'll let you know if he enjoys that pick or not, because he is an Atlanta Falcons fan.
Right.
All right, Shane, 9th selection, Chicago Bears.
The Bears are, I think, has moved down is interesting. I think a lot of us thought, all right, they're not going to move out of the top 4. They're going to make sure they get Will Anderson, or at that point, Jalen Carter, when he was viewed as a top 4 pick. Moving down to 9, I think, gives them possibilities here to really take the best player off the board, because they have a lot of needs. They have a running back need for, that's a big hole. Bijan Robinson could fill that. On the defensive side, I think the entire defensive line, whether it be a defensive tackle or an edge rusher, makes a lot of sense. I think corner makes sense, but ultimately, to me, I think the offensive tackle position, they whiffed on Mike McGlinchey. We know they were in on him. They do have 2 young offensive tackles that show some promise. So I don't think it's a slam dunk that they're going to take, a left tackle here. But I think if you're Chicago, you can kind of manipulate the offensive line to the way that you like it. You can have Tevin Jenkins at right tackle. I think Braxton Jones will be a nice swing reserve that you even can kick inside, worst case, if you need him to, if there's an injury. So it comes down to which one. I think there's 2 in contention: Paris Johnson from Ohio State and Broderick Jones from Georgia. I think for this offensive system, I'm going to take Broderick Jones, the offensive tackle out of Georgia. I think he's probably the top tackle on their board. There have been some very small rumblings, and I haven't been able to confirm any type of character concerns for him. But some small rumblings, that the Bears are not a team that's going to take a player who has off the field issues. That hasn't been what Nate Pulse has done. So I think Jones could check out just fine. And if so, I think it's a good shot. He's the pick here at 9.
Man, at the NFL Combine, Jared asked, I can't think of his name right now. I'm having a brain fart. Stetson Bennett. Mm-hmm. He asked Stetson Bennett if Georgia has a culture issue. And he came back. Stetson was like, nope, that's wrong. And here we are, 9 picks into the draft. And we've talked about 2 Georgia players with possible off-the-field issues. So I don't know.
Yeah, look, there's nothing concrete on Jones. Like, I don't want to put that out there, right? I mean, we know Carter's issues. I don't know if they're Jones – by all accounts, is a good person, but I think, there's the 2 things we never know, right? Character and medical. Like, those are the things that drop guys. Sometimes you're like, why is this guy falling, right? So, if it happens with Jones, that could be a possibility.
All right, KT, you got the Philadelphia Eagles to wrap this episode up.
So, I've been looking around. A lot of people like Bijan Robinson here, but they just newly named Sean Desai, their defensive coordinator, to replace Jonathan Gannon. Of course, Jonathan Gannon is now with the Arizona Cardinals. So my thought process went to, if you look at Sean Desai when he was under Nagy with the Chicago Bears, they blitzed. They was like the 29th most blitz team, pretty much, which mean, they just like to send their front 4. That's just what they like to do. And same thing last year with the Seattle Seahawks. He was second. He was ranked 31st in the amount of times that they blitzed. The last team was the Philadelphia Eagles. We've seen how much pressure Philadelphia was able to get. So, of course, they wanted somebody a lot like Jonathan Gannon. So, in my opinion, they don't really need much on the front 4. This is, I think, a BPA type of pick that we're going to see with Philadelphia, but I can definitely see them going corner. I can definitely see them grabbing Devin Witherspoon out of Illinois.
So that's the selection.
Yeah.
Man, you imagine like that secondary. Bradbury, Slay, Witherspoon, and then who knows how long they're going to have Bradbury.
Are they still shopping Slay?
No, but I think he only signed a 2-year deal.
Okay,
if I'm not
and they can get out after 1.
Both him and I think it's one more run for the veteran corners, and I think it makes a lot of sense to bring this guy in to learn from 2 savvy veteran corners who, in my opinion, like to hold a lot and get away with it.
Right.
But they
The Cowboys talking over here.
yeah. Well, listen, Mr. Ohio State with CJ Stroud going 1 overall. We each have our crutches, but I think it would be great to put Witherspoon in a locker room with those two guys. Watch Bradbury, watch Slay, watch them work and learn from them before you move on from one. I don't think they'll move on from both of them next year, but I believe they could. But I think it's likely one of them is out of there. But this has been very fun, completing the first 10 picks of the 2023 NFL Draft. Shane, we appreciate you for blessing us with some of your time. KT, as always, this has been an absolute blast. Go check out the CFB Nation on the YouTube. KT said it earlier. Tons of content. Go check out what's the Oklahoma show called? Boomer Breakdown?
Sooner Shakedown.
Sooner Shakedown, Boomer Breakdown. That's the alternate version. It rhymes.
Yeah, I like
that. All right, go check that out. Go check out the Hawks Nest. Stay tuned. We are nonstop. We're pumping out tons of content. If you're watching, we greatly appreciate it if you subscribe, comment, like. If you want to support the show, patreon.com/toilets to titles. And we also are running tons of fantasy mock drafts in our Gilded chat. So reach out to me on the Twitter at Coach Sheps, or reach out to us, toiletstotitles@gmail.com. I'll get you a link to our Gilded chat. And I think 3 days a week we're running mock drafts. So if you want to get in there, you want to mock with some of us, get yourself in there and we will have a good time. So that is it. We will see you all next week, same place, same time. And we're going to have Oliver Hodgkinson on, and he's going to help us complete the next 10 picks of the draft. All right. So we will catch you all later on. Take care.